Yeah. Okay, so you have your notes out, you have your homework 7 out, which is not a homework that you have to finish. Okay, remember several of those questions you actually can't do. Anybody need it? No? Okay, great. Alright, let's look at 7 and 8 off the front. Okay, number 7. Okay, the first thing, so you just had a couple minutes to do them last time. Hopefully you did. If you didn't do them with me now. But your limit for the top and bottom must be separated. So I cannot just put them together as a 0 over 0. Remember, that's bad news for the AP test. So you're going to do the top and the bottom limit separately. Plug in 0. What is the cosine of 0? What's e to the 0? 1 minus 1 is 0. We got 0 on top, but we have to also get 0 on bottom. So 2x, plug in 0, we get 0 again. That means we can use L'Hopital's rule. On the top, limit x approach 0. What is the derivative of cosine x minus e to the x? Yeah, so snow cone, bottom two are negative. So if I'm at cosine and I go down 1, I'm at negative sign. What's the derivative of e to the x? Still e to the x. On the bottom, what's the derivative of 2x? 2. Then from there, you reapply the limit as x approaches 0. So when I plug my 0 in here, what's the sign of 0? 0. And then what's e to the 0? 1. 0 minus 1 is negative 1 over 2. Got that one? Okay, take a look at number 8. First thing you should have checked is your individual limits. So I do the limit as x approaches 0 of 1 minus cosine x. Then the limit as x approaches 0 of x squared. Okay, but when I plug in 0 to cosine, what's the cosine of 0? 1. And 1 minus 1 is 0. Then I look on the bottom, 0 squared gives me 0. And when they both come out to be 0, that means I can do L'Hopital's rule. So, limit x is still approaching 0, take the derivative of both. What's the derivative of 1 minus cosine x? If I'm at negative cosine, I'm at the bottom. Where does that put me when I go down? Back up to sine. What about the 1? Derivative of a constant is 0. Okay, then we have an x squared on the bottom. Derivative is 2x. Okay, now I'm going to switch to the board because I kind of ran out of room. But when I plug in 0, what's the sign of 0 on top? 0. What's 2 times 0? That means you're doing L'Hopital's rule another time, okay? So I'm going to skip the separate limits, but if it was a real AP test and it was free response, you should do it. Okay, so limit x approach 0. What's the derivative of sine x?
Cosine.
And what's the derivative of 2x? 2. Now I plug in 0. What's the cosine of 0 on top? 1 over 2. So that one was a double. Because after I took the derivatives and plugged in, I got 0 over 0 again. Okay? Hi, how's it going?
I'll explain later.
Okay. Turn over to the back. We said 13 and 14, right? Okay, may I turn it? Good?
Get it.
Okay, 13, take a look at it, please. First thing you should have done is found your limits separately. Okay, take a look at your limits separately. When I plug in 0 on the top, e to the 0 is 1. Okay, and then 1 minus 1 is 0. On bottom, 0 squared plus 0 is 0. So when that's true, I can use L'Hopital's rule. I want the limit as x approaches 0 of the derivatives. What's my top derivative? E to the x. Again, what about the minus 1? Constant is 0. Very good. Okay, then on the bottom, x squared plus x. What's my derivative there? 2x plus 1. And then from there, when I plug in 0, what do I get on the top? E to the 0 is 1, and then 2 times 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1, so it would be answer choice. Yep. Make sense? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Limits separately. So I would do the limit as x approaches 0 on x approach e, sorry. And then the limit as x approaches e of x minus e. Okay, they both equal 0. Here's why. What is the ln of e the same as? Okay, that is the same as 1. The ln and the e, if you remember, they like cross out with each other and just leave a 1. So if I have ln of e, which is 1 minus 1, that's 0. Then e minus e is 0. So I can use L'Hopital's rule. Okay, take the derivative. So I'll have the limit as x approaches e of, what's the derivative of ln x minus 1? 1 over x. That was in your rules from Monday or Tuesday. And then on bottom, what's the derivative of x by itself? 1. What's the derivative of e? 0. Why is it 0? E is a constant, right? E is like 2.718 or whatever. So if E is a constant, it's a specific constant, but it's still just a number, then the derivative of that is 0. So then from there, I have 1 over x over 1. Plug in E, you have 1 over E. Over 1 doesn't change it, so it's 1 over E. Yes, you got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay. Yes. 1 over E is the answer. You got it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to switch back to your notes from yesterday. We're going to finish them up, and you guys should have about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to work on homework 6. Is this homework due on Friday? No. Don't do it. You can't even do half of it anyway. So don't do it. Well, not because of you, but just because, like, we haven't covered all the derivative rules. Homework 7 is never due as of right now. Don't throw it away, because we might do an example, but. Okay, are we good? Here come your notes from yesterday. Okay, so this is the back of this guy. First page. Got it? Oh, I forgot we didn't do these. This is the notes packet from yesterday. Yes, sir. Okay, so take a look at number 9, please. Okay, number 9 says, this is notes from yesterday. Yes, ma'am. Okay, it tells me that f prime is cosine, g prime is 1, and then you're asked to find the limit as x approaches 0 of g over f. Okay, guys, be friends. Okay, so I want the limit as x approaches 0 of f of x over g of x. Okay, so the first thing that I would do is I would plug in 0, right? So I plug in 0 on top and on bottom. On top, I get f of 0. On bottom, I get g of 0. But then what? Look right here. What does it tell me f of 0 and g of 0 are?
0.
They're both 0, so I'm like, uh-oh, 0 over 0. Now, if this is free response, I lose all my points if I leave it. Technically, it's multiple choice, but to practice, nope, we're going to mark it out. Can't have 0 over 0. Not allowed. We're going to do L'Hopital's rule. That's L apostrophe H.
Then you would separate it, right? Like
You would take the... Okay, now if it's free response, you have to show the limit separate. I'm not going to because this is multiple choice, but if it was free response, yes. Okay, so limit x approach 0. What is the derivative of f on the top called?
F prime.
F prime. What's the derivative of g of x on the bottom called? G prime. And now look at what they told you at the very beginning. What's f prime the same as? Cosine x. What's g prime the same as?
1.
And then what's x approaching? 0. 0, plug it in. Cosine of 0 is 1 over 1, which is 1.
The answer is B.
Yep. Okay, take a look at number 10. F of x equals 2x squared plus 1. Then the limit of f of x minus f of 0 over x squared. Okay, first thing I do. X is approaching 0. You don't have to rewrite this. I'm just rewriting it so I can mark on it. The first thing that I do is I take this 0 and I'm going to plug it in right there. But when I plug that in, the top now says f of 0 minus f of 0 over 0 squared. That gives me 0 over 0, which is the indeterminate form that tells you, can't do it, you have to do L'Hopital's rule. So I'm going to cross these guys out, because I know I can't do that, and I'm going to take the derivatives of the top and the bottom. Yes. What is the derivative of f called? F prime. Now, let's talk about this. F of 0 is what kind of thing? Is it a function or a constant? F of 0 is a constant. It's the answer when I plug in 0. So this is a number. When I take the derivative of a number, what do I get? 0. It's going to go away. So nobody cares that the f of 0 is here because that's a constant. And when I take the derivative on top, that constant is going to be eliminated. What's the derivative on the bottom? Derivative of x squared is 2x. Now, then it's like, okay, well, what do I do from here? How can I find f prime? Well, what did they give me?
2x squared.
They gave me f, so if I want f prime, just take the derivative. Very good. So on the top, derivative of f is?
4x.
4x. What about the plus 1?
0.
Okay, then I got a 2x on the bottom. 4x over 2x?
2.
2. What happens to the x's?
Cancel.
Cancel, so it'd just be
2.
Let's go, Jared.
You got it. Love it. Love it.
The energy. I feel it, bro.
Yes. I also feel it. Little bro.
Yeah, little Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah, little shy.
Alright, go to number 11. What is that? Okay, look at number 11. Okay, we have x approaching 2. Now, here's the deal. This one is kind of advanced. I've only seen it on the AP test once. But you need to get a common denominator. Here's why. Okay, the reason why is that when you're doing limits, you really, for L'Hopital's rule, need it all to be one big limit. So I can't leave those separate. So hopefully your Algebra 2 and Pre-Cal teachers taught you how to do this a million times. But if they didn't, first thing you're going to do is split this up into factors. What are the factors of x squared minus 4? Plus 2 and minus 2. Okay, good. Then I have minus x over x minus 2. What do they already have in common? They both have an x minus 2. What does the second fraction need to match? If I want to put that on the bottom, where else do I have to put it? Great. Okay, now the top or the bottoms match, so I can combine the tops into one big fraction. So, on top, bottom is going to be an x squared minus 4. I'm just going to squish that back together. Plus 2 and minus 2, combine it. Okay, on the top, I'm going to have 8. Then I need to multiply my x in. Plus or minus x squared? Minus x squared. Okay. Plus 2x. Got him. Nope. Minus x. You got to distribute that negative in with the x. So really it's negative x times 2, which is a minus 2x. Okay, from here, what is x approaching? 2. Now this is free response. So you got to show your limit separately. So limit x approach 2 on the top. You can put those guys in order if you want to. I'm not going to just because I don't care, but you could and it wouldn't be wrong. Okay, so I'd have 8 minus, what's 2 squared?
4.
Minus 2 times 2.
Zeros.
Yep. Okay, then I need to do the limit as x approaches 2 of the bottom.
Yes, indeed.
So I'd have x squared minus 4 on the bottom. 4 minus 4 is 0. Okay, so since it's free response, you would have to have both of those limits written out equal to 0 before doing L'Hopital's rule. So here we go.
That's the top and bottom, right?
Yeah, this is the top
And then the other one.
and that's the bottom. You got it. But we had to combine them into one big fraction to name the top and bottom. Okay, so L'Hopital's rule, limit x still approaching 2. You don't really need the plus, but go ahead and write it. It doesn't make a difference, but just to keep it the same. Okay, and then on the top, take the derivative. So of this guy. What's the derivative of that?
Negative 2x
Okay,
minus 2
bottom,
over 2x
And then
minus 0.
minus 0, and then from there plug in 2.
Yes, indeed.
2 on top gives me negative 4 minus 2 more,
Negative 6.
and then 2 times 2 is 4, so it's negative 3 over 2.
Is that ridiculous? Do you want to reduce it or just
Oops.
leave it?
I don't care. You wouldn't get points off if it was free response for not reducing.
So we can leave it at negative 3/2.
So wait, but it also be negative 1.5, right?
You could also put negative 1.5. Either
They
one.
trick to put it in decimal form.
Nope. So you could have put this, or negative 1.5. Those are all check, check, check. Good to go.
Oh, we can leave it at the 6-4?
Huh?
I thought we'd have to.
Nope. Now, if it was multiple choice, they'd reduce it, but... Alright, turn over to the last page of your notes, please. Last page. Okay, so I'm going to give you like kind of a short version of why Bobo Bot and Betsy works. Okay, and I need you to just pretend like you care. Okay? Pretend like you care about this. Okay, so look at the first one. Okay, the indeterminate form 0 over 0 is also allowed to use L'Hopital's rule if it's infinity over infinity. This is what I mean by that. If I plug in infinity to the top, so my x's are getting bigger and bigger, and I'm going to square them, what's going to happen to the value? Infinity over infinity. So if I have numbers getting bigger and bigger, and I'm squaring it, what's going to happen to that value? It's going to keep getting bigger, right? On the bottom, I'm going to take a number, I'm going to square it, and then it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What's going to happen? It's going to go to infinity. So I would do L'Hopital's rule, take the limit as x approaches infinity, and then take the derivatives. On the top, what's the derivative of x squared plus 5?
2x.
Okay, on bottom?
6x minus 8.
Okay, then I'm like, okay, well now let's try the limit again. X is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. On the top, if I double that number, that value is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger towards infinity. So we'll put infinity. Okay, then 6 times a number getting bigger and bigger and bigger is going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I would do L'Hopital's rule one more time. Yep. Derivative on top is 2. What's the derivative on bottom? 6. Okay, and then if it's a constant, your answer is just that constant, 2/6, which is...
1/3.
Okay, what would you have gotten if you had just done your little Betsy?
1/3.
1/3. You got it. Okay?
Wait, so you automatically use Betsy on all these?
Yes, so listen one more time. Okay, you already know how to do these. They're Bobo, Botan, or Betsy. I'm showing you where it comes from, and that's where I just want you to pretend like you care. Okay? So, when you're doing this on the AP test, okay, when you're doing this on the AP test, would you show this work? No. You would just 1/3, move along.
So you do the derivative again until you get rid of all the x's.
You would just put the answer. You wouldn't have to show your work at all on these.
You just simplify that into 1/3.
Good? Okay, look at number 14. Now, remember, you're pretending like you care, but what's the answer to number 14? You already know it. 0. It's a bobo. You already know that, but pretend you didn't and you really care about what I'm trying to show you. Okay, so x is going to infinity. If I multiply that by 3, it's going to go to infinity as well. If I square it, it will continue to get bigger and bigger. So I use L'Hopital's rule. What's the derivative on top? 3.
Wait, my bad.
That's okay. And then on bottom, the derivative of x squared is?
2x.
Now, what about the plus 6?
It's gone.
Gone. Now, x is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The top is at 3. The bottom is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What happens when I divide a number by something getting bigger and bigger?
0.
Goes to 0. Yeah? But you already knew that it was a bobo. So you would never do these by hand ever. Okay, next one, number 15. Look at it.
Wait, even on the free response?
Even on the free response. They wouldn't give you this on a free response. Just because you wouldn't have to show any work. Okay, look at 15. What's automatically the answer that you already know? Bigger where? Okay, so this is going to be DNE because it's a button. I already know that. Okay, but we're pretending like we don't know, and we're going to do L'Hopital's rule over and over again. So on the top, what's the derivative? E to the x. Remember, that one stays. On bottom, what's the derivative? Okay, do L'Hopital's rule again. What's the top going to be?
12x.
E to the x, bottom is
12x squared.
12x squared. Okay, 2 more. Next one, what's the top?
24x. Oh,
24x on bottom. And then last one,
4.
24, right? Okay, now listen. As I do L'Hopital's rule, remember we came up with that list of like who's the most powerful? And we said e to the x is the biggest function. Why? Because his derivative is his own self. So the bottom keeps shrinking. It's a fourth, it's a third, it's a second, it's an x, then it goes away. But e to the x, your exponentials, those stay the same size forever. That's why exponentials win. Okay? So we're going to put our little list down here one more time. But remember, sine, cosine, and constants are the smallest.
Where is that at?
Just on the notes. Then your logs, then your power, then your exponential. Yes, from least to greatest. Okay, last one we're going to do is number 6, then you'll have the rest of class to work. What's the derivative of ln x on top? It's in your notes, you remember it. 1 over x. What's the derivative of x on the bottom? Okay, so I have 1 over x on top. I have 1 on bottom. That is the same as just 1 over x, right? And so if my x is growing and growing and growing, and I'm dividing that into 1, what's going to happen to my value? It's going to go to 0. But you already know that because what's the comparison? Log to power. Bigger on bottom. Logs lose to power. That's why. So that would be 0. Okay, but you already know that it's a bobo. So don't reinvent the wheel and do these by hand. I just wanted you to see where it comes from so that you would know, okay? Alright, so at this point you have how long left? 31, 51. Oh, you have 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to give you applications for mu alpha theta if you want one. Okay, here are the stipulations to join. You have to have taken pre-cal last year. You did, right, if you're in here. And you needed to get an 85 if you were in regular, or an 80 or above if you were in on-ramps or pre-AP. So if you know that your year average was above that, you can take a sheet. I'm going to pass them so it's not awkward and you don't feel embarrassed if you didn't make the cut. Okay, but if you want to join it, cool. If not, cool. It's good on a college application because it's a math honor society, but it's just like eating snacks and stuff. It's it's not like doing math problems.
Don't you get a cord at the end of the year?
You do get to wear cords at the end of the year. There's one big change that I want to let you know of since I'm the sponsor. You guys have to do service hours. They're making, it's only 8, and if you go to a meeting, you get half an hour. So if you go to all of the meetings, you'll pretty much have all of your hours anyway, and at the end of the year when we're studying for the AP test, those hours are going to count too. So you should be able to get them easily, since it's not that many. So take one if you want. If you don't, just pass it along. And then the meeting is September
I didn't even know.
You can still put it in your
25th. Okay, do y'all have any oh, and then TXML competitions start in October. You do get bonus points, but you only get them for the ones you got right. So if you get 3 questions right, you get 3 bonus points. If you get all 5 right, you get 5. If you go and don't get any right, sad day, you don't get it.
Hey, you don't get it.
Any other questions? Yes. Okay, homework 6 is out on your desk. That's what you're doing. When is it due?
Friday.
Friday. Homework's always due Friday. Always on Fridays. And then homework 7 is not due. Don't do it. Yes.
So I'm picking just one derivative.
And then plugging in 27.
I was in my mom's. And she studied that.
Service?
Yeah.
Service hours? Like, can it just be anything you do, or does it have to be exclusive?
I think it can be any, but you just can't double dip. So like if you're doing hours for NHS, you can't also count them for this.
Okay.
You'd have to do them separately, yeah. So like if you have like 30 for NHS, you'd have to do 38 technically. But at the end of the year, we're gonna have like study sessions after school. There'll be an hour each, and so you can knock those out. 2 as another, you don't need one. Chelsea, you need one? No?
Wait, Miss Jordan, are these the notes for Monday?
IVT, okay, that was from last week on Tuesday.
I'm just trying to see.
Yeah, that was last week on Tuesday, and then here is where they start. This is where they start.
Thank you.
Yes. Crap, I forgot you had done that. When did you do it? Okay. Don't forget. Okay? Yes, we'll do it then. Okay, you're working productively on homework 6. I love to help if you need help. Okay, hang on a second. ln of 1, ln of e is 1.
You need 120 service hours. No, you only need 60.
Yeah, you only need 60 to get the.
The derivative of ln
I don't
of
need
x
60 now.
and then your c. Because ddx stands for.
How many do you need for the closing?
Well, one's constant, so the derivative is.
It's,
Do you need 60 hours?
No,
So x is
I have
approaching.
0. I have 100.
So all the other ones mostly was like x kept approaching 0. Just since that one is not, is a 0.
oh no, yeah.
Oh yeah, guys, listen, one more thing. If you're on my roster, you're gonna give your application to me. I have to check your grade. So, if you guys are officially switched, you said both y'all?
Looks like me. I'm closing you. He's closing me.
So if you filled it out, I'll take it and I'll go check it. GEER. Yes.
I'm in Deco. But they still need art.
So around $6 can't graduate? I don't believe that.
Students graduating in 2018 and they're after completing minimum 60 hours of volunteer hours.
They get blood.
Yeah, you give blood, you get 16 hours.
Mr. Prashana only 50.
I thought 1 cube was named. Yeah.
What's the derivative of this?
I have like 75.
Of what? X to the what? Is it 3 halves or 2/3? Okay, so
I was in another lesson. I have so many hours I never put in.
minus, so 2/3 times 2. So that's like 2 over 1 times 2/3. You do 2 times 2 is 4 over 3 times 1 is, so 4/3. Then I need to minus 1, so I'm going to minus 3 on 3. You have to keep whatever the bottom is, you have to match that. So I'd make that 3/3. Then what's 2/3 minus continuous? And then derivative of minus 3 is 0. Then when I convert that, I do 4 over 3.
How many do they have?
X is going to have to go on the bottom with the 3. It'd be to the power of 1 and a third.
Yeah, but it's not good for your
And you can write the 1 if you want to, but you wouldn't really have to. And then from there, you're plugging in what? 27, right?
I'll do that and then like.
So what is the cubic root of 27? Thank you.
Miss Joyner.
Hang on one sec. So I'd have 4 over 3 times the cubic root of 27, which is 3. So it'd be 4 over 3 times 3, which would be 4 ninths. You got it.
So you literally start at
Because I know my sister got 4, multiply it out and then find it.
Yes. Did you have a question too or no?
Do you have a lot of Oh wait, you multiply it out and then do the derivative?
I think usually it's, they don't really give hours.
Well, I said technology said in 2017 average students must have 60 minutes, 60 hours. But it didn't say like in order to
I ain't graduating either.
You don't need to get your butts together. Sure. Oh, will you grab the bathroom pass that yellow over?
I wasn't
on focus. It was some of the stuff that was like in the packet that we talked about this morning.
You got an Android
Can I
sharpie?
still do it just to get
Nah, I'll send that to you.
Yes.
You got your shit?
It says
It
exact.
says two, that says, not exempt, it
something
says
else.
drop. Two of them.
Okay, so the dropped is gonna be on whatever you're loading. We're
Galaxy
gonna talk about that
S3.
tomorrow. So like, let's say you turn it in,
Oh,
the dropped
shit.
is gonna move
My
to your
bad, Sonny.
next lowest.
On a
right?
minor or a major?
Chill out,
If
bro.
it's
I'm already
on
on that.
homework, it's 1 for each. The lowest test will not
What happens if, okay, I need to, that's what
Okay, so let me ask this. I've seen you back here working. Are you getting more and more behind?
I wanted to drop, but it was
want to shake your hand.
Okay. Because like working on homeworks that are this old, I would say is probably not gonna help you grade that much.
Yeah, real quick.
What you need to do is correct quizzes, and then we'll talk about test
I'll
scripts.
shout nigga.
So that's done.
You want some
That's
tea,
good.
right?
Okay. Have your pink sheet?
Let me talk to
Negative
you.
1 came from what?
I'm on this all day.
What you on, bro?
Uh-huh.
Tell me that to me.
So if you want to know if it's continuous, you're going to be looking at your continuity definition. A is the number that's so for example, if you're checking 0, you're going to find f of 0. The limit is x approaches 0 from the left side and the right side. That's going to be your first 2 steps.
No, that's right. All of these are talking to you.
Well,
I'm on it.
First one is 2.
I'm on it. I want it.
No, you're right.
I'm on it.
Now this one, I think,
Yeah. You know, I'm on it.
y'all should get boxing gloves.
I think it is,
Ooh.
okay, this one's gonna be continuous, so let's
You
work
gotta
it
get your
out.
ass beat.
Okay, so first thing,
Are you?
yeah, I'm gonna write on the board with her, but then I'll have you.
There we go.
Did you finish?
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have e to the x plus 1, and then 4 minus x. And then this is x less than 0,
Are you finished for you?
2, is that right? Oh, it's 1. Okay, and then is this one the equal to, or is the bottom the equal to? Oh, okay, then not. Okay.
So, it's not really.
Okay, so first thing you're gonna check is f of 0. Second thing we're gonna check is the limit, x approach 0 from the left, and then x approach 0
I don't
from
know,
the
that's
right.
not, I don't think that, yeah.
So those are the 3 things you find first. F of 0 is gonna be the part of the function that has the equal to on 0.
Yeah, that's right.
So what has the equal to on 0? Top, middle, bottom.
Cube minus 1x minus 1.
Middle, 0 plus 1 is,
No, you put
Good so
2x
far?
squared, I just put.
okay now, I already plugged it into the bottom. That's the second 0, so that's already the answer to the right side. So I only need to go back and plug into the left side. So e to the 0 is
Right?
1. So I got 1 and 1, my limit exists, and what was my y value also? So then in step 3, you just say it came out the same. So the limit as x approaches 0, which was 1, is equal to f of 0, which was 1. Therefore, it's continuous.
We got 56 though, right?
Okay, so let's find the second one and then we'll sketch the graph. So here, you can write all this down in a second. Okay, the second one you're checking is if x equals 1. So I'm going to do f of 1. Where do I plug in? Top, middle, bottom. Where's the equal to? Middle. So 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, step 2. I need to check the limit as x approach 1 from the left.
Okay.
Limit as x approach 1 from the right. Right?
You're satisfied.
Which one did I already do if I already plugged in here? Left or right side for 1? 1 is here and here. So the top is the left, the bottom is the right. So I already plugged into the left. What did I get? 2. For the right, I'm plugging in here. What's 4 minus 1?
Oh yeah, Mr. You get it.
So what that means is, yes, that since these don't match each other, it's not continuous, right? Okay, now let's sketch your graph using all this info.
Can you please help me?
So, 0 and 1. Those are my
I know
keywords.
you answered everything in class today.
No, I'm trying to do it.
What is f of 0?
I'm on number 3, one that you've done.
1. And to the left of it, what's my graph shape? Each of the x's, your growth graph, right? And now think about what was I approaching from this point. So when I draw my graph, it should end at that same value. Okay, then on the right side, I have x plus 1.
I got all the way here.
What shape is that?
When I'm on
It should be a line. Where does it start at? 1. And where does it end at? Look here. What was my limit as I approach 1 from the left? So I'm going to go from 1 to 2. Right? And then on the other side of 1, I switch to 4 minus 6. What's how to put shape is that?
I'll give you positive 1 because it's a
It's a line. Which way is it going though? That was a positive x. And what was my limit as I approached from the right side? So if this is 2, my open circle is at 3, and it's 1 down. So you have your e to the x right here. You have your straight line here. And then you have your down line. This one is continuous. This one is not continuous. So the graph really just kind of helps you like see what this looks like. They won't ask you to do that though on the AP test.
I see where I messed up.
Miss Jordan, wait. That's an easy question.
I'm coming. Yes. What? No. What is it? You just take the derivative 5 times.
2x.
But remember, it's snow cone, snow cone. So look.
Oh, never mind.
So just go down like 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Times it out.
And then just do what I would.
Like foil it basically,
Yeah,
and then take the derivative. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so like how would I put the 5x?
So you'd have 5 over x, which would be 5x to the minus 1. Because you had more x's left over on the bottom than you did on the top. And then that term would be minus 1 and x to the negative 2, because you have 2 x's left over.
Okay, I got 27 this time. I'm really doing this.
I think you did that one wrong. Okay, so it's x squared, what is it on top? Minus
3x plus 2.
divided by square root x. Okay, so we're going to convert the square root x to an x to the 1/2. So I'll have x squared over x to the 1/2 minus, I'll have a 3x.
Oh, they're all gonna be over.
You're going to have to divide each one to reduce it. Yes, please. So remember, this is my rewrite. I divide each of them separately, and then I'm just going to subtract the fractions. So what is 2 if I take away a half?
1.
Close. 2 take away a half. So this is kind of like 4 halves.
1.5.
Okay, so what would that be as a fraction? 4 halves minus 1/2 is 3 halves. Next term. X is like x to the 2 over 2. So what's 2 halves minus 1/2?
I went to tutoring this morning.
I And then last one, my x is on the bottom, so I'm gonna turn my exponent to 1/2 to a minus. That's your original rewritten. Now you can take that. So this is still y. Now you want y prime. So what would your first term be? So times that down. Three halves. And then I have to take away 1 from 3 halves. So if I minus 2 halves from 3 halves, what's left over? X to the 1/2. And I would think about like I'm minusing like 2 halves. And for my next one, I do 1/2 times minus 3. So that's minus 3 halves. But then if I minus 2 halves from 1/2, negative 1/2.
That's what I was confused about, because I got X to the next one.
Okay, so let's finish this last one. So then negative 1/2 times 2 is negative 1. Minus 2 halves would be x to the negative 3 halves, right? Okay, then for your, when you do your last rewrite, all the negative exponents, you just put on the bottom. So like for this, I have 3/2 regular root x. But then for that guy, because he's negative, he has to go down 3/2. You see what I mean? It just sinks to the denominator. And then this one, you'd have a minus 1 on top. X would be cubed and squared on the bottom. So if the exponent ends negative, it just belongs in the denominator. Yes, ma'am.
Why is 26? 28.
You have 28, the fuck is
You did, but you have to reduce each one, so what's x squared divided by x squared?
Oh, yes, 28.
That's 26.
Then if you have 5x over x, it's going to be 5 x. How will you rewrite that?
My dog.
5x to the minus. So if there's an x and an x
They're
squared,
both
don't
over
you
2.
see?
Everyone should stand up.
And so like one of the x's here, cancel the thing with the
They're not moved by
x.
language.
Yes.
Oh, Lincoln's just
No, but like,
Or you can see what is an x on the bottom and then change.
I feel like if
And
Aaron
then
were to
that
stay,
one,
we
you
would
have
have had
minus
They cast us
1
3
x
points.
plus minus.
But you know, Kobe and Marshall.
X to the negative is better, because you can do power. You know what I mean?
trash out.
Here, let me write it on the board. So you have 1 plus,
And I was wide open.
I love that.
like that.
Second team.
Because your leftover x, if it's on the bottom, it's really a minus 1. And then your last term would be minus 1,
Wide open like
x to the minus 2.
No, he do it.
and he's a big man. But he got tapped by
And then you got the derivative from there.
110.
And make sure, like, when you minus 1 from that, your second term will be an x to the minus 2. When you minus 1 from that, it'll be an x to the minus. Yeah, so let's do, so derivative of 1 is 1. Negative 1 times 5 is, okay, and then this would be 4 over plus 2. Oh, that was the bell, it was really soft. And then your last step, you would do negative 5 over x squared, 2 over x cubed. Oh, thank you. You too. Yes. Ahmed, I didn't get to your question. I'm sorry, what was it?
It was about the fraction. There was something over x squared. I know how to really do it.
I just did it right there in blue, if you take a picture of it. I did it with Callie. Thank you.
You guys, alignment, you suck, bro. Y'all always getting.
Miss John, I'm sorry, man. We keep arguing.
I know. What's going on with you two?
I think he's gay.
Oh, he literally just
think
kept
he's
talking
gay.
about me today.
recording.